Test 1, test 1, 2. Oh, looks like we might be live now. Okay. Huh. Even though it says we're offline. It's weird. Okay. Alright. So we might have a guest joining us as well. Walter Bradley might be joining us here in a few minutes. But I just figured I've been wanting to briefly cover this project here, Project BlueBook. And I downloaded this 13-page document from darkdocs.com. And I'm sure you can find it. I'm sure it's out there everywhere, but that's where I found this one, and that's where I was able to pull it out and read it. And I think there's just, some good stuff here. So just going to be a brief little overview of what we find. So we're going to begin here in just a few minutes. Just a few seconds. Thank you all for bearing with me here. If you've never heard of Project BlueBook, we're talking about UFOs, and you'll see that very, very quickly here as we get going. So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and start here, I believe. Why not? Okay, Project BlueBook. Only got 13 pages here. Subject Project BlueBook, file name 62-83894. Alright, this is from the Department of Air, Washington, D.C. And let's see. This is regarding unidentified flying objects. This is written by H.A. McClanahan, Lieutenant Colonel of the U.S. Air Force, Chief Civil Branch, Community Relations Division, Office of Information. And let's see, it looks like January 14th, 1977 perhaps. Hard to see the actual date, but we'll get there, don't worry. So, Mr. Mumfield, this office recently received a public inquiry regarding UFOs referred to us from the Bureau. That's the FBI, Federal Bureau of Investigations. As the enclosed fact sheet indicates, the Air Force's Project BlueBook investigation of UFOs was terminated on December 17, 1969, and all related documentation was turned over to the National Archives and Records Service. The inquiry referred to us has been apprised of these events. Hopefully, the enclosed fact sheet will be of help in responding to any future inquiries on this subject. They were investigating UFOs. Alright, we're going down. We're looking at page 3, looking at the UFO fact sheet right here. On December 17, 1969, the Secretary of the Air Force announced the termination of Project BlueBook, the Air Force program for the investigation of UFOs. The decision to discontinue UFO investigations was based on an evaluation of a report prepared by the University of Colorado entitled Scientific Study of Unidentified Flying Objects, a review of the University of Colorado's report by the National Academy of Sciences, Past UFO Studies, and Air Force experience investigating the UFO reports during the past 2 decades. As a result of these investigations and studies and experience gained from investigating UFO reports since 1948, the conclusions of Project BlueBook are: 1. No UFOs reported, investigated, and evaluated by the U.S. Air Force has ever given any indication of threat to our national security. 2. There has been no evidence submitted to or discovered by the Air Force that sightings categorized as unidentified represent technological developments or principles beyond the range of present-day scientific knowledge. And 3. There has been no evidence indicating that sightings categorized as unidentified are extraterrestrial vehicles. Number three is obviously the one that most interests me and probably some of you too. That is a very curious statement there that we saw. Hey there, She-Wolf. Thanks for joining us here. I don't know what your view is on Project BlueBook, UFOs, and all that good stuff, but here we are just talking about this 13-page document that was released probably as a FOIA. Let's see. So let's go down here. So I think those 3 points there, those are the 3 main points, but obviously this does show that they were at one point investigating UFOs and were looking into the possibility of extraterrestrial vehicles. Okay. With the termination of Project Blue Book, the Air Force regulation establishing and controlling the program for investigating and analyzing UFOs was rescinded. All documentation regarding the former Blue Book investigation has been permanently transferred to the modern military branch, National Archives and Records Service, 8th and Pennsylvania Avenue, Washington, D.C. 20408, and is available for public review and analysis. I like that. Alright, attached for your information is the Project Blue Book sighting summary for the period of 1947 through 1969. All included is a listing of UFO-related materials currently available. Since the termination of Project Blue Book, no evidence has been presented to indicate that further investigation of UFOs by the Air Force is warranted. In view of the considerable Air Force commitment of resources in the past and the extreme pressure on Air Force funds at this time, there is no likelihood of renewed Air Force involvement in this area. Wow, so they're saying after 1969, that was basically it. Obviously, we know that that's not true. Really, for the Air Force, I have a hard time believing that. So we'll see if our guest here, if our friend Walter Bradley, if he's able to join us here at any time, we'll see what his view is on any of this stuff. But I don't know. They're admitting that they looked into it. They're admitting that they continue to look into it, but they stopped in 1969, if I'm reading this right. I find that very hard to believe. But let's look at the total UFO sightings between 1947 to 1969. The interesting thing is the total sightings to unidentified sightings. So these are total UFO sightings and then unidentified. So even of the sightings, there's still some that are left unidentified. And you can see, especially in 1952 and in 1957, those numbers really grow. So what was going on there? We can go down. 1963 is another obviously important one. It kind of ramps up. Kind of slowed down in 1961, 1960, and 1959. It kind of really slowed down there and then started picking back up again, especially in 1966. So these numbers are very interesting. And I'll make sure that everybody has this document, but you can get this from darkdocs.com, and I'm sure it's everywhere. You can find it all over the place, and I'll post it to my website too, gregfernandezjr.com. But this has been a document that I've just kind of wanted to go over, and thankfully it's only 13 pages, so it's not like it's that long. But the topic of UFOs, what they are, has intrigued me for a long time, and Walter and I have had many talks about this, because up until I had spoken with Walter, I had never considered the possibility that these UFOs, or some of the UFOs, not all of them, but some of them could actually be demons. And I know it sounds crazy, because when I was first told this, it sounded crazy to me too. I'm not convinced 100% yet, obviously, because demons don't need a physical craft, a technological craft, to do their They're dirty work, but maybe this is part of that dirty work. So I don't know. Like I said, we're just talking about that. I have not made up my mind on exactly what I feel about it, but I know a lot of people, a lot of Christians that do associate these alien sightings, the UFO sightings, with demons. So there it is. So those are some good stats there. You can see those numbers. The interesting thing, obviously, is the total sightings compared to the unidentified. So are these total unidentified and then the unidentified of the unidentified, or are these just total sightings and then the unidentified of those? So it's a little confusing there, but that's okay. Still 701 unidentified sightings. So maybe these other ones are the ones that they can explain away somehow. Weather balloons, things like that. I know. That's okay. All right, let's go to UFO materials. We're now looking at page 5, Scientific Study of Unidentified Flying Objects. Study conducted by the University of Colorado under contracts F44620-76-C-0035. 3 volumes, 1,465 pages, 68 plates. Photo duplicated hard copies of the official report may be ordered for $6 per volume, $18 a set of 3. All right. That's good. Review of the University of Colorado report on unidentified flying objects. Okay, so these are the materials, the source materials that they're going through. Review of report by a panel on the National Academy of Sciences. National Academy of Sciences, 1969. All right, so you can get that too. So there's your sources, your references. There are a number of, we're now looking at page 6, there are a number of universities and professional scientific organizations, such as the American Association for the Advancement of Science, which have considered UFO phenomena during periodic meetings and seminars. In addition, a list of private organizations interested in aerial phenomena may be found in Gale's Encyclopedia of Associations, edition 8, volume I, page 432 through 433. Such timely review of the situation by private groups ensures that sound evidence will not be overlooked by the scientific community. Interesting. What are you laughing at, She-Wolf? We're going down to page 7 here. Okay, there's the date, January 24th, 1977. On the first page, I could not see the actual date there. So, but now we can. Okay, Lieutenant Colonel H.A. McClanahan, U.S. Air Force, Chief Civil Branch, Community Relations Division, Office of Information, Department of the Air Force, Washington, D.C., 20330. Flying objects, unidentified flying objects. Dear Colonel McClanahan, Mr. Mumfeld has brought your letter of January 14th with enclosure to my attention. I join him in thanking you for sending us a copy of your UFO fact sheet and for apprising us of the termination of your project. So here we go. Sincerely yours, Donald W. Moore, Jr., Assistant Director, External Affairs Division. And things like this really make a big difference when we see that a subject like this should be taken seriously. Whatever your issue is with the UFOs, whatever you think that they are, this is a real issue. It's a real topic, and I do believe that it deserves a real discussion. So just want to throw that out there. Thanks everybody for joining us in the chat now. If you would like to leave any questions, comments, or concerns, please do. If you want to tell me how crazy I am, go for it. Now is the perfect time. Okay, the new Project BlueBook. All right, we are now looking at page 8 of 13 here. Let's see, name approved. Okay, it's September 12th, 1989. Mr. William S. Sessions, Director of the Federal Bureau of Investigations, U.S. Department of Justice. Dear Mr. Sessions, your letter of September 1 has been received, and I am very appreciative of hearing from you. Your letter presented information that I had already mentioned to you in my letter of July 24. So this was information I knew. I had given this to you as advanced information that you would probably receive from other government agencies and departments, and which is a standard release material. Again, the new Project Blue Book is a civilian continuation of the original Project Blue Book, which did close in 1969. Here, 20 years later, some of the same original Blue Book, Pentagon, and other persons are still looking for the real answer to the UFO phenomenon. That's right. As we should be. As we should be. That is the reason, too, I gave you the information I did about J. Edgar Hoover, President Carter, Senator Barry Goldwater, etc. I was hoping to go deeper into the intelligence gathering agencies which received some of the better UFO reports, which never did go to Project Blue Book. So they're saying there were things that were left out of Project Blue Book, is what it sounds like there. All right. I have been to the National Archives and have looked at some of the original Blue Book material that is there. I met with persons at NASA's headquarters in Washington following their receipt of the request from President Carter. I met with President Carter's chief scientific advisors personnel at the new executive offices of the President. I sent reports to the original Project Blue Book and know of some of its former personnel, etc. So I know the whole scheme of things pertaining to UFOs, except for the hidden intelligence gathering agency participation with regard to the better UFO sighting reports, and which are to this date real hard quote-unquote unknowns. Your response is appreciated, and please accept my very best wishes. Sincerely, unknown. Alright, that was dated 9/1/1989. It is interesting. I find the whole thing very interesting here. When people just think that we're crazy, or that, the UFO whole thing is really crazy. But documents like this show that the government knows about it, and might not, at least some of these people don't know exactly what these things are. So that's very interesting. And are these spy planes? Are these something from this world, or are these something out of this world? Are these something spiritual? Alright, the new Project Blue Book. Here we go. We're now on page 9 of 13. July 24th, 1989. Mr. William Sessions, Director, U.S. Department of Justice, Federal Bureau of Investigation. Dear Mr. Sessions, you may recall that while you were in Fort Smith visiting your father, I called and briefly mentioned my keen desire to meet with you and to discuss the phenomenon in general, and the role of U.S. government participation in particular. I said that I wished to issue a challenge to you, not that you do not know something challenges on a daily basis pertaining to UFOs. You stated that you were interested and to write to you, and which I am now doing. I could write pages on the matter, but rather than do so, it will be lengthy enough for me to endeavor to give you information I wish to convey in this letter. In any event, the U.S. government has played important roles in the evaluation of UFO reported sightings. The new Project Blue Book is a continuation of the original Project Blue Book, established by the Air Force, and was located at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base, Dayton, Ohio. Some of the most important sightings announcements came from the Air Force, and which were later stated to be something not in the original announcements in a cover-up of the initial announcement. This repeatedly happened, much to the chagrin of the Air Force. Original members of Project Blue Book found that many reports never were received by this group, but went to intelligence gathering agencies. I don't like that, and I'm sure you don't either. While Director of the FBI, Mr. J. Edgar Hoover, whose personnel reported some of the sightings himself and who were otherwise brought into some of the cases, repeatedly asked the Air Force for complete information about the UFOs to no avail. For the complete information about UFOs, the Air Force, would not release certain case reports to Mr. Hoover. Even with the present FOI, mostly sanitized version copies are received and with information requested completely blocked out. Wow, that's par for the course. Hey Walter, how's it going, man? Thanks for joining us there. Let's see. Walter says, "Hello, Greg. J. Allen Hynek was a debunker that was an advocate to investigate. He was approached by the Air Force in 1948 on the issue." And Shiva says that was Bush senior years. Absolutely. I can't trust alphabet gangs. Yeah. Let's keep reading here. We're now looking at page 10. While chairman of the Senate Committee on Science, Senator Barry Goldwater asked for information and was told that he was not on a need-to-know basis. Where have we heard that before? This request of Goldwater had to do with the initial announcement from the Air Force that a saucer had crashed and that alien bodies were at the point in time located in a hangar or other building at Wright-Patterson Air Force Base in Dayton, Ohio. Senator Goldwater was refused any information in this matter, along with not being allowed to personally look inside of the alleged building. Very interesting. Very, very interesting. Before taking office as president, Jimmy Carter announced to the public that if elected, he would give the American people the government's information about UFOs. This did not happen, and Mr. Carter was given a complete runaround, and I could tell you more about this because I was contacted by the Pentagon on the matter. Then we have a whole section that is blocked out, so we're going to skip that. We're still on page 10 here. The new Project Blue Book has 148 present and or former Air Force, NASA, NASA, and intelligence gathering agency personnel, among with others, acting as advisor consultants to PBB, anonymously. Project Blue Book. These are persons who, for the most part, had been actively engaged in earlier UFO reports for their respective agencies and who are still muchly interested. Okay, let's go down here. So with this brief background of information about me and okay, so that's probably what this blocked out stuff is, his background, the information about him. So with this brief background of information about me and about government participation, the challenge I have mentioned would be to have you make inquiries at the highest levels of officialdom about what our government really knows, whether or not there are alien bodies located anywhere, what happened to the crashed flying saucers, where are the photos taken by Air Force personnel through onboard gun cameras, and similar questioning. I am positive you would find that even you would be getting a general runaround and could not receive satisfactory answers to the above. I think you would find that you are not receiving all the information you should be receiving, and which should be very evident to you after making several inquiries. You may tend to drop the matter thinking you are receiving answers to your question, but this will not be the case, I assure you. Now looking at page 11. Mr. Sessions, I will not take more of your time in this matter, but if you are interested, I would appreciate your looking into the matter. You may wish to appoint one of your office personnel to start making inquiry about UFOs in general, and see which agencies to which you would be directed. Keep in mind, however, that some present office personnel in the other agencies may not know what you would be inquiring about, and will tell you that the Air Force Project Blue Book closed its doors in 1969, and that the Air Force no longer investigates UFO sighting reports. This I already know. The important key is to go beyond the Air Force and into other agencies, such as the Office of Defense, CIA, etc. The alphabet gangs, as Shiva calls them. President Bush when asked about UFOs, told the person asking, "You do not know the half of it." As you know, President Bush, formerly with the CIA, as you know, President Bush was formerly with the CIA. His comments are on tape, by the way. Well, I think this should suffice for the time. I appreciate your patience in regarding this letter, and should you desire any additional information, please do not hesitate to let me know. I would like very much to work through you and with you to endeavor to bring the matter of UFOs to a conclusion, if that conclusion is an honest one. I hope you had a nice visit with your dad and come back for a visit again soon. Very sincerely, blank. P.S. As sort of an quote-unquote ultimate challenge, why not ask President Bush himself? And I wonder how many times things like this have come up. How many letters, how many times a new president comes into office, a new congressman comes into office with these same inquiries, I guess, or letters to call on an inquiry to figure out what these things really are. Do we have? I think it's a great question. Do we have any aliens anywhere here? Anywhere? Do we have any saucers anywhere? I think it's a very valid question. Let's see. She-Wolf2 asks, what's more dangerous, UFOs with Martian or Bush and Clinton families? I'd say the more dangerous is if they're working together. That would be the most dangerous. And make a lot of sense, unfortunately. All right. Now looking at page 12 here. And again, the name censored out. Dear Censored, I have received your July 24th letter in which you ask for my help in securing information relative to investigations of unidentified flying object UFO sightings. I have discussed your request with my colleagues, and I would first like to explain that the investigation of UFOs is not now, nor has it ever been the responsibility of the FBI. Tell that to Mulder and Scully. The Department of the Air Force conducted investigations and studies of UFO reports from 1947 to 1969. On December 17, 1969, the Secretary of the Air Force announced the termination of Project BlueBook, and the Air Force has furnished all documents regarding its investigation of UFOs to the Modern Military Branch, National Archives and Records Administration, 8th Street and Pennsylvania Avenue, Northwest Washington, D.C., 20408. I understand this data is available for public review and analysis. You may wish to make an inquiry of the Modern Military Branch for the answer to some of your questions. Kind of like the runoff, getting William Sessions, the director of the FBI at the time, really writing this guy off here. But let's continue. Also of possible interest, the National Aeronautics and Space Administration, NASA, was asked by President Carter to look into the possibility of resuming UFO investigations in 1977. Nice. After studying all the facts available, it decided that nothing would be gained by further investigation, and the Department of the Air Force agreed with that decision. You may also want to check with the National Aeronautics and Space Administration in connection with your research. I am not aware of any federal agency tasked with the responsibility of investigating UFOs and hope this information will be of help to you and your organization. Sincerely yours, William S. Sessions, Director. Now, this is disturbing because and this is September 8th, 1989, if they're not investigating UFOs at this point, so they say, that would lead me to think that they actually were, that they were investigating, that they were possibly even working with the drivers of the UFOs. Let's say that. Oh, Little Rock. That's an interesting one. All right. That was page 12. Now we're going to go to page 13 here. Walter Bradley has joined us again in the live chat. Always do a live chat with these on this YouTube channel, GregFernandezJr.com. This is my backup YouTube channel since my main YouTube channel had some issues, and I have a 90-day ban from streaming live like this. So here is what Walter says. The Navy is setting up protocol to follow up sightings by Navy personnel, mainly for pilots, as I understand. Walter would know because Walter was in the Navy and we won't get into too much of that or anything, but um, he would definitely, have some knowledge on that. Let's just say that. Leave it at that. She-Wolf says, which is not a good thing, and that's true. It's not a good thing. Just to silence them. And then Walter says, it is a strange thing for Navy to get involved. And She-Wolf says, so farther in Fort Smith, now Little Rock. Yeah, Little Rock. There you go, Fort Smith. All right, here is the note here. We are now on the last page, page 13 of 13. Note, who is not identifiable in Buffly's writes to the director, referencing what appears to be a brief phone conversation he had with the director while the director, they're still talking about Sessions, the FBI director, while the director was visiting his father in Fort Smith. He says he wants to discuss UFOs and the role of U.S. government participation in particular, and he indicates that the director stated he was interested and suggested he write to him. Then we have some few censored lines there. He asked the director if he would make inquiries at the highest levels of government about what our government really knows about UFOs, whether or not there are alien bodies located anywhere, what happened to the crashed flying saucers, quote unquote flying saucers, where are the photos taken by the Air Force personnel through onboard gun cameras, and similar questioning. Above response reviewed by SSA censored. Violent Crimes Unit, CID. Substance of paragraphs 2 and 3 are responses previous. Substance of paragraphs 2 and 3 of response previously provided to other inquiries on the investigation of UFOs. And that's where it basically ends here. So just wanted to read through that, cover this document, quick little document here, only 13 pages. Yeah, what else was in Arkansas? Good luck. Yeah, there's a lot in Arkansas, apparently. So it's not surprising of what we have found here. But just wanted to take a few minutes on this channel to kind of cover that, to cover just a little bit of the Project BlueBook, and we'll find some more. We'll continue this as we get some more documents. I really like just reading these documents kind of by themselves without the some of the commentary of other writers. It's really nice to allow people to be able to read these documents for themselves and come to their own conclusion about what you think these things are. Before I go, I hope that I can get Walter to maybe briefly in the chat maybe explain a little bit about his view on the connection between the UFOs and spiritual beings. I know we've talked about that on Walter's show, Heart Talk with Walter Bradley, and I hope that we will continue this discussion on the next episode of Heart Talk, which will be here, hopefully live, and we will discuss the unidentified flying objects and how they tie to these spiritual beings that are floating around and floating within and floating everywhere. So, She-Wolf also says, Bill, governor of Arkansas, so was it more than drug running? Good question. Yeah, Arkansas, the drug running and all that might just be a cover-up or something for something bigger, for something more. Yeah, thanks for teaching me about Arkansas. But it could be a cover-up for something even bigger, a distraction, right? You wave the flag to the right while you commit a crime on the left, etc., etc. Okay, Walter says, new, and I thought strange for them to go this direction, so a new direction from the Pentagon, who is one who has more intimate information on this, along with calling them interdimensional. Yeah, I'd love to find a government document, something like that, that calls these things interdimensional. That would be a very powerful document. So, of the very few documents that we have, I think Project BlueBook, my view is the reason why this one stands out so much is because it's one of the only documents that shows how serious the government was actually looking into it, and it's one that was, shall we say, on the books, not off record. Let's put it like that. So, I'm going to go ahead and shut this stream down, and until next time, good peeps, as always, I appreciate you all joining me here. I'm going to come back here in a couple minutes with another live stream to discuss, just for a few minutes again, something about 9/11. So until then, I'll see you on the other side. All right, everybody.